before we get to Eric, just what's new with DORA right now? Well, if you hadn't heard, the 2024 DORA report came out a couple weeks ago, and if you haven't downloaded it yet, you can do that at dora.dev/dora-report-2024. No worries, I'm going to drop that link in the chat here in just a moment as well. On top of just having the report, on dora.dev, we have an entire section of the site dedicated to this year's research. You can get this lovely kind of overview infographic that helps you. If you're not sure if you want to read all 120 pages, this is a good way to get you excited and get you to download it and dive in. You can access the report. You can see all the questions that we used in this year's survey. We had published a preview of what we had found in this year's research around AI, and then there's an article around fostering trust in AI. And also, we're human, and we don't always get everything right on the first try, continuous improvement. So if you do see something that needs to be improved, encourage you, that, as you can see, we've had a lot of things that we've improved on this year's report already, to submit a change or correction here at the bottom. And then the other thing that's great is we mentioned that we've been making improvements, that there's also meaning that we are going to have multiple versions of the report. And if you're curious if the report that you've downloaded is the most up-to-date, you can go to dora.dev/vc, and it'll let you know if there's a more current version for you to download. And then you can always go to the errata page to see what has been updated. And if you haven't yet, encourage you to check out DORA Core V2, especially after you read all of the research. How do you get started? The core model is a great place to dig into, to identify something small that you can do as a team to improve. Now, with that, it is time to hand it over to Eric. Eric Maxwell leads the DevOps transformation practice at Google and has been a part of the DORA team for several years. And it has absolutely been an honor for me to get to work with Eric. I think especially because a lot of his time is spent out with teams who are going through this, who are working on this, and he has built the research into the practice that he brings to these teams. And it's always lovely, especially when we're looking through the research, to hear Eric's opinion on it, because he is really out there helping teams improve. And so now I will pass it over to Eric to talk about what we found around leading transformations.
Thank you very much. That was a lovely introduction. Yeah, thanks. I guess we've already gone through the introduction, so thank you again. I do appreciate that. So this year I took the transformation section. I think it's kind of fitting since I lead transformations with customers at Google, so it just kind of made sense. We look at transformational leadership. We've looked at it at the past. What I wanted to do was just sort of start off and make sure that we're grounded and we all are speaking the same language when it comes to what is transformational leadership. And also, I thought that we would start off with the questions that we asked in the survey to help us understand, as we go through the data. I think it will help make a little bit more sense. So what is a transformational leader? First, they have a clear vision of where the team and the organization are going, and they are able to, communicate that in an inspirational way. They're able to get people excited about things. They also do a really great job of, inspiring people by saying positive things about them, making people feel proud about being part of the organization. They do a great job of communicating situations of the organization so that they would be interpreted as opportunities. They do a good job of challenging team members and providing intellectual stimulation. So, encouraging teams to think differently about scenarios, to challenge some of the basic assumptions that they might have about their work. They are also supportive leaders. So they consider other people, when they're making decisions. They're thoughtful of people's personal needs. And they also do a good job of personal recognition. And so, what's actually interesting about this is that and I learned this a while ago, and I was quite shocked, but not everybody likes public recognition about things. So being able to recognize a person for the good work that they're doing in the style that they like receiving that recognition is really important also. And so this is the way that we define what is transformational leadership. And these are the questions that we asked on this topic. And you can see how they kind of map to things on the left. We don't exactly use the same words, but asking teams to sort of rethink their assumptions, leaders being encouraging, understanding, etc. So this was the way that we structured the survey. So what we found is leadership is important. It's very important. Our research this year shows that a 25% increase in leadership results in lots of amazing things. You get a 9% increase in productivity. You get a 9% increase in job satisfaction. You get a 10% reduction in burnout, 9% increase in team performance, 4.5% improvement in product performance, so you make better products, and organizational performance goes up by 10%. And so, what we've seen from past years is leadership isn't the only piece of the puzzle. It acts as an enabler in a lot of ways, but it is a very important piece, even though it is not the only piece. This year, we took a look at the relationship between user-centrism and transformational leadership and the impact that those things had on products. And what we saw is that this is a very powerful combination with respect to building great products. So if you have transformational leadership, but you don't have user-centrism, you're not going to build great products. If you have user-centrism, but you don't have transformational leadership, you'll build okay products. But if you really want to truly unlock the greatness that is possible, you would pair user-centrism with transformational leadership. We also, every year, we kind of like to cluster things together and to get an understanding of, what would we recommend based on the research that we've done, as far as like, what are the things that result in, high performance from an organizational perspective, high performance from a team perspective. And this year, if you notice on the right-hand side, when you cluster the idea of prioritizing stability, now I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So when we say stability, it's a bit of a loaded word because we also refer to stability in the context of pipelines and software delivery. In this case, we are talking about priority stabilization throughout the organization. So, think like the opposite of reorging every 6 months, or, the opposite of, having a new thing that you're driving at. And, believe it or not, I speak to a lot of customers, and one of the big complaints that I hear very frequently is this exact thing, where especially in startup companies, I'm sure many of us have been there, where really the priorities are in a lot of times sales driven, right? Whatever that the big sale is that's on the table oftentimes dictates the priorities. We see, in the most recent example, I would say would be around AI. When something big comes up, oftentimes priorities flux. So that's what we're talking about here. So teams then that prioritize stability over changing, and we also realize that not all the time, like we can't always say, hey, we can't change our priorities, right? Because a lot of times the business needs to change the priorities in order to be flexible and to respond to market changes, respond to competition, et cetera. So this isn't always something that we can control. However, I think it's important to note the impact that it can have, because then it's good to be able to set expectations and sort of be able to control for the variable. So doing that, focusing on the user, having good leadership, and probably no surprise to anybody that's read our research over the last couple of years, having and crafting good quality documentation. There's that documentation thing again. So this is a combination, the winning combination that we see this year for driving transformation and driving a successful organization. This year also, what I tried to do in the chapter was sort of do a bit of a retrospective, taking a look at the last 10 years of research and taking those things and saying, okay, like, what are the combination of things that we've studied in the past, with the new information that we have and with everything else that we've researched. And I try to come up with some guidance around the things that you can do specifically to guide and lead transformation inside of your organization. And one of the main points was being a data-driven organization. And this revolves around the 4 keys, but I would really encourage you to look at the 4 keys as improvement metrics. And you can look at these metrics in 2 ways. I think the way that organizations oftentimes look at these metrics is as lagging indicators. Taking a look at the software delivery performance and saying, okay, are we doing the technical things and the process things that are, driving performance in software delivery? This is also interesting if you take a look at the high-level capabilities that we've defined: climate for learning, fast flow, and fast feedback. These also map pretty nicely to, like, the DevX framework, as an example. They also map pretty nicely to the current abilities of SDLC tooling. So, think things like inner loop tools. They often help these types of things: feedback, flow, documentation, learning, understanding of code, understanding of documentation. So anyway, so we can look at these as lagging indicators, but then we can also look at the 4 key metrics as leading indicators for employee well-being and also for organizational performance. And so I think that this does a good job of tying together the story of, okay, well, why should we be making investment in these areas? How is this actually going to affect the bottom line? So what I've noticed is that a lot of organizations still really struggle around being data-driven. They still struggle around, what are the important things? What are even the metrics to measure? And I always talk about these in the context of the sort of the baseline. Like, the question comes up a lot, well, are these the only things that we should measure? Well, no, just get these set up and then build things on top of that. So with that, that's the content that I had, and we can move into questions and into Lean Coffee.